Chapter 2. Threads That Twitch. When you draw the future, sometimes it draws back. The storm still hadn't broken. It should have. The pressure in the air was thick enough to press against lungs, to hollow out ears. The clouds above the village pulsed, not in a natural cycle, but like the slow flex of muscle around an unseen eye. People noticed, not openly, not yet, but they flinched more often, dropped plates, misremembered names, prayed harder. Inside her family's stilted home, Lintang stared at her latest drawing. It was the jungle, but not. The trees curved inward, forming impossible arches. Beneath them, thread-like shadows danced on two legs. At the center was a figure with no face, but a halo of thorns made of weather. She blinked. The figure was on the left side of the page a moment ago. Now it stood in the center. She looked down at her pencil. I didn't move it. Her mouth felt dry. Her fingertips ached. The pencil dropped from her hand like it had grown hot. A moment passed. Then the drawing began to hum. Elsewhere, near the eastern groves, Raffi knelt beside a corpse. It was a monkey, a young one, likely from the temple troop. Its body was intact, no wounds, no blood. But its eyes were sunken in, and its limbs curled as if recoiling from something invisible. Its fur bristled in jagged tufts, frozen in motion. Amira crouched beside him, one hand over her mouth. "Poison?" she asked almost hopefully. Raffi didn't answer. He was holding a leaf from the nearest tree. It shimmered with the same pulse as the storm clouds. No fungus should do that. No plant draws light that way. He turned to Amira. "I think it's absorbing memory." She stared at him. "I know how that sounds," he added. "No, I believe you," she said, voice trembling, "because I just forgot my sister's name." That night, Tip lit a single candle in his workshop. He didn't need the light. The shapes around him were known: books, bones, glass jars sealed with wax. He had memorized every shelf, every crack in the walls. But the candle made the memories quieter. "You've come back, haven't you?" he thought. "After all these years." And then, a voice just behind his left ear. "You were never meant to leave." His skin went cold. He turned. No one was there, but his hands had already begun to shake. Number not now. Not again. He reached for the silver dish beneath his desk, pricked his finger, and let blood fall onto the rune etched in the metal's base. Smoke rose, and so did the past. The smoke rose in a slow, coiling spiral, neither gray nor black, but the color of faded parchment and dying stars. It danced inside the silver dish on Tip's desk, trailing through the air like a serpent weaving through a dream. Tip remained perfectly still. His finger still bled. A single drop fell into the center of the sigil, an ancient form called Kona Vahel, which meant the binding between now and not now. The smoke shivered. Then it spoke. "You should have let the girl die." Tip didn't move. The voice came not from the air, but from inside his left ear, the old place, the hollowed place where his master's voice once lived. Even now, years later, it still sounded like broken mirrors and bitter herbs. Dry, controlled, infinitely cruel. She would have been the price. You could have stopped the collapse even then. "I was 17, Tip said aloud. His voice came out hoarse, wrapped in old regret. "I didn't understand." "No," the voice replied, smooth now. "You did. You just hesitated." The smoke curled upward toward the ceiling, casting shadows against the walls, long, jagged shapes that flickered like teeth. Tip slowly reached for a small brass bell beside the dish. It bore no clapper. He rang it. The sound that followed was not a chime, but a ripple of pressure, an unecho. The shadows jerked, the smoke froze, the voice vanished like breath held too long. The room was silent again. Tip exhaled, long and slow. It's beginning again, he thought. Not visions, not dreams. This is bleed-through, memory saturation. He looked down at the silver dish. Where the blood had fallen, the sigil now pulsed faintly. The pattern was wrong, not what he'd drawn. It had rewritten itself into something older. By morning, the first signs had reached the town square. Lintang stood quietly behind a fruit stall, her hands tucked under her armpits, trying not to shiver. Her drawings, 5 of them, had been posted up along the wooden support beam beside her family's cart. Her mother believed displaying them would help sell more bananas. People like pretty things, she had said, kissing Lintang's forehead. But the drawings weren't pretty. They were accurate, and people noticed. The first showed a tree bent backward, its branches inverted like veins, roots clawing toward a pale sky. The second, a human figure with no eyes, its arms folded inward, mouth stitched shut with threads. The third, a clock but with its hands spinning counterclockwise while the numbers bled into shapes. The fourth, her own face staring up from a pit surrounded by mirrors, each showing a different storm. And the fifth, the new one, still drying, a man made of cloud and scar, his robes laced with lightning, his eyes gray, sad. His hand held a chalk stick, drawing a door, and from that door leaked something blacker than ink. She had not drawn the last one, not consciously. But her fingers had moved, and now it was here. A boy around her age stopped to look. He frowned. "This is you, isn't it?" he said, pointing at the fourth drawing. Lintang hesitated, then nodded. The boy sniffed. "Are you cursed or something?" She didn't answer. Maybe, she thought. Maybe I am. She looked up at the clouds. They were lower now, brushing the tops of trees. She could swear they were listening. Rafi hadn't slept. Instead, he had spent the night comparing notes with Amira in their field tent, surrounded by vials of soil, moss samples, and a slowly browning bouquet of leaves that glowed under ultraviolet light. "We can't explain this without sounding mad," Amira whispered. Rafi rubbed his eyes, pushing his glasses up the bridge of his nose. "I'm past caring how I sound. The facts speak louder." He laid down 3 photos. The first, taken 6 months ago, showed a lush fern, its fronds symmetrical, its veins normal. The second, taken a week ago, showed the same plant but twisted upward, drinking from ambient mist, veins glowing faintly. The third, taken this morning, showed nothing but ash. The plant had burned itself out from the inside. It metabolized its own timeline, he said softly. It lived a full cycle in 24 hours and then ceased. Amira blinked. That's not biologically possible. It's not biology anymore. She didn't reply. Rafi stood and walked outside the tent. The wind had picked up again. Not a breeze. Not even wind. It was movement, a brushing against reality's surface. He heard whispers. He turned. Nothing there. Then he looked down. There were footprints in the mud, human, and walking in a circle. Tip dreamed he was a boy again. It was not a memory. Not really. Not the real one. This version was broken, stitched together like a puppet made from old bones and half-remembered fear. He sat in the ruins of the old salt port. The wind howled through broken pillars. He was barefoot, cold. "You look pathetic," the voice said. He turned. Raku stood at the edge of the dock, tall, dressed in black robes that shimmered like beetle shell. His face was hidden, always hidden. Tip never saw his eyes, only the mouth, curved, never quite smiling. You failed again, Raku said. Tip looked down at the sigils he had scratched into the dock boards. They were wrong, sloppy. They never teach you the weight, only the language, Raku continued. But power comes with price. You want to draw time? Give it blood. You want to bind death? Give it youth. Tip said nothing. Or, Raku said, crouching beside him, voice low, take it from someone else. He placed a knife into Tip's trembling hand and pointed across the dock to a child, sleeping, younger than Tip, dirty, alone. A life for a day, do it, or starve. Tip's hand shook, the knife clattered to the floor. I won't, he whispered. Raku's smile widened. Then you'll learn the other way. Tip awoke on the floor of his workshop, breath ragged. There were marks on the floor around him, sigils he did not remember drawing. His hands were covered in chalk dust and something darker. The candle had burned out, but on the table was a symbol, old, forbidden. He recognized it from Raku's oldest book, the symbol for choice unmade.